Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Few things in this life are certain besides death and Tetsuya Nomura-ing. And while this lover of useless extra belts and convoluted plot twists claims little to no responsibility for the twisty turns of this particular tale, that doesn't mean that the ending of this game hasn't left hundreds, nay, thousands of players asking, what in the Kingdom Hearts is going on here?
I just don't know.
Fear not, my confused gamer brethren, for I am here to help you sort through all the endings, rivaled in number only by the likes of Return of the King Extended Edition, and explain to you with perfect clarity the ending of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, warning, we're entering spoiler territory here, and I mean, it's kind of implied by the title because we're explaining the ending, but we are going hard. Spoilers for OG Final Fantasy VII, Remake, Crisis Core, and every tie-in novel and mobile game that's part of the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. Are we still using that term, or is it now like Final Fantasy VII Reverse, but verse is spelled with a 3 in there for some reason? Anyway, consider yourselves warned. First, let's address the big plot point here that shook the entirety of the gaming world in 1997. Aerith, still dead. At least she's dead in the timeline our main party is following, as evidenced by the fact that everyone is gathered to mourn her death by the lake in the Forgotten City, where we see Cloud lower her body to its final resting place in the OG game. Anyway, Cloud can still see her, and that's weird, so to understand that, we roll it back to when Cloud and Aerith fell to an uncertain fate during the struggle over the Black Materia at the Temple of the Ancients, and they wake up in what Aerith calls a dream.
Let's just call it a dream.
But is this a dream? The sky looks the same as it does in the Zack timeline, and Cloud and Aerith wake up in the exact same spots that they've been lying in that universe for literally the entire game. But the dream question is an important factor here, or more the fact that Aerith classifies it as a dream. For you may recall that previously, Marlene had a conversation with Zack wherein she claimed if Aerith wakes up, a scary man is gonna come kill her. And Zack needs to make Cloud better so he can save her, even though he didn't last time being the original Final Fantasy VII timeline. So let's say we're in Zack's world's Aerith's dream. I mean, we are. It's just a question of whether or not this dream is also its own world, timeline, universe, however we want to classify all these diverging events. And to answer that, we need to consider a number of factors. First, Sephiroth. Okay, so when Aerith is out dragging Cloud around in Sector 5, enjoying the final days of the world existing, the disembodied voice of Sephiroth says to her,
"So this is where you've been hiding, in a world that has accepted its fate."
Which we know is the case in the Zack world because Elmira is like, "Don't worry, Marlene, honey, you'll see your daddy and Tifa soon when we all die." I'm paraphrasing, but you understand. And speaking of the extremely sus 4-year-old, going back to what she said to Zack about Aerith waking up and getting killed, this all lines up with that. Just stay with me here, okay? So Sephiroth says, this is where you've been hiding, meaning that the spirit of Aerith is not inhabiting the body that's laying in the bed in the Zack timeline. She's astral projecting into this world to stay safe. Now, Aerith in Dream World is acting super weird.
Why are you acting so weird?
Exhibiting behavior you basically only see from her if she is the one to go on a date with Cloud in Chapter 12. And look, maybe you observe this more from her if you're trying to date her, but Tifa is my ride or die. So I made very Tifa-centric choices and only saw the Aerith date after I used the extra settings in Chapter Select. Either way, Aerith here is essentially treating Cloud as Zack 2.0, and the player's even given the option to get her a pink hair accessory, which Zack famously did in Crisis Core. It's the ribbon that she wears in her hair, if for some reason you don't know.
She even tells Cloud that she'll explain herself once they get to, in her words, our spot, meaning the Sector 5 church, where Cloud has only been once.
But this is where she and Zack would meet and where she said she'd be when she last spoke to him on the phone during the Nibelheim mission. Now, while this world does resemble the one in which Zack exists, it's not exactly the same one. And how do we know this? Well, I am so glad you asked, because it is time now to reveal the key to understanding all of this. Shinra's cartoon mascot dog, Stamp. Now, this is actually a concept we were first introduced to in the ending of 2020's Final Fantasy VII Remake. In it, a bag of stamps, champs, chips float past the ankles of a surprisingly alive Zack Fair, but this stamp? Totally different from the one we've seen in the game hitherto. And in episode Intermission, wherein Stamp looks exactly the same as the one Biggs was using to guide Cloud, Barrett, and Tifa through the train tunnels. But if you think that's it for Stamp variants, oh, no, my sweet summer child, you are very wrong. For you see, Stamp is the very way by which we track the world that we are in. First, we have Beagle-looking Stamp. We'll call him Stamp Prime. This is the Stamp in the main timeline that we're following. He was in episode Intermission, the one with Yuffie, and he's present in Rebirth whenever we're seeing our main party out and about in the world. Then we have the already addressed remake ending Stamp. We're gonna call him Stamp Z for Zack, because he first appears when we see Zack having survived an attack in which he should be dead. He basically signifies the creation of a new timeline that carries over into the beginning of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as Cloud and Zack arrive in Midgar. The game very intentionally shows us a large billboard of Stamp as the camera pans out over the destruction of the city caused by the crazy tornado that happened as a result of fate being changed at the end of Remake. And it's the same Stamp, it's Stamp Z. So let's go back to Aerith's dream, which is also its own world, separate from Zack's, as I already mentioned. Observe, if you will, the appearance of the Stamps Champs, which Cloud can choose to ask for when selecting a little treat from the snack vendor. Oh yes, that's right. This? Definitely a completely different dog. Stamp AD, if you will, for Aerith's dream. Now, we know another world/timeline was created for Aerith to save Zack, so is this a timeline created for the sole purpose of saving Aerith and Cloud from death when they fell off a ledge at the Temple of the Ancients? Yes-ish? This is, as mentioned by Sephiroth, a place where she's hiding to keep herself safe from him, and if Marlene is to be believed, a place where she can keep her soul safe as long as her body doesn't wake up in the Zack world, until Cloud gets better and can save her anyway, which we're a whole game away from that yet. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, back to Stamp. In Zack world, Zack, who they make a big point of showing as having tied Aerith's pink ribbon around his hand, is torn over what to do after realizing that Biggs is going to blow up Reactor 6, where he will certainly die again in this reality. So he has to make a choice. Save Cloud now and maybe save Aerith, or wait and go to Biggs. He chooses Cloud, and this results in the creation of, or crossover into, even more worlds. Observe, if you will, Zack confronting an army of Shinra infantry atop the hardy Daytona, which, now I guess in this timeline, Cloud never stole because it's there for Zack to steal, which doesn't really make a lot of sense because we saw Cloud riding this in the opening. I don't know, maybe they put it back? Anyway, this is definitely the Zack we saw in the tunnel because he still has Aerith's ribbon around his hand. And while this is difficult to tell due to being very small and in the background and also heavily shadowed, it appears that this dog, it might be the same Stamp from the chip bag at the end of Remake and the billboard at the beginning of Rebirth. It also might not because the tail and the ears, they look a little droopier, but the color is the same and he's got a fluffy little face. It could just be the pose that's making it look like it's different. So for the sake of simplicity, we're just gonna assume it is and move on, okay? But then we see another scene where Zack chooses to go after Biggs at the Sector 6 reactor. And we open on Biggs eating a bag of Stamp's Champs, except now Stamp is a pug in a bucket hat. So we're in another timeline, universe, whatever. We'll call this one Stamp B for Biggs, even though he kicks it pretty quickly here because he can't accept any fate other than the death he was supposed to have, I guess. Zach, on the other hand, is a man who believes in free will, and damn it, if he isn't gonna live by that. He does not have the pink ribbon on his hand here, though, by the way, so this is not the main Zach timeline. That Zach is at the Shinra building. And no, we are not done. Now, this one is potentially a stretch, but we later see Zach sitting on the steps of the church in Sector 5, still trying to decide who to rescue, Cloud, Biggs, or Aerith, so I guess this Zach is like, F it, I can save Aerith myself. As Zach sits there mulling over his decision, who should come along but Johnny, carrying a dog plushie. Now look, this could not be a stamp, but like, why would you have Johnny run through the background with a dog mascot stuffed animal if that is not the very thing that we use to anchor ourselves in different realities? I mean, they make a point of showing all the different stamps, so I'm just saying that there is merit to this. Okay, we're calling this one Stamp J for Johnny. So we have Stamp Prime, that's the Beagle guy, that's the main timeline. Stamp Z, okay, that's the Zack timeline, which was created at the end of Remake. Stamp B, this is the one where Zack chooses to go after Biggs at Reactor 6, but Biggs dies anyway. We have Stamp J, which is Johnny at the church, and of course, this little friend, Stamp AD for Aerith's Dream World. So now we know we're dealing with at least 5 different continuities here. But anyway, all of this leads us to the Convergence. And here is where shit gets wild. So, Stamp J, Zach, he's waiting on the steps of the church, trying to decide what to do, and encounters Sephiroth. Then he gets yeeted into the world between worlds. Yes, I stole that from Star Wars. In this liminal space, he's able to traverse realities, and then Cloud also winds up in this space when he gets kicked out of Aerith's dream to go back to his own reality, where before waking up, he encounters Aerith again in his own dream. And he gives her the white materia, which he took from the Stamp AD Aerith, because he was in that world, and then he brings it back to the Stamp Prime Aerith in the real world, at least the one that he came from, and in that world, like, her materia had gone to be just like an empty shell, clear bulb, and they like trade. The important thing is that Aerith has the white materia, which we know she needs in order to like stop Sephiroth from destroying the world with the black materia. Now, what we do know is that when Cloud reaches Aerith in the Forgotten City, 2 things happen. He does save her, and also he doesn't. Can we pause for a second here? That Sephiroth has this whole like 7 seconds to the end thing, and I want to see if that's real. Like, people think he's talking about Aerith getting killed like it's 7 seconds before he like stabs her. I don't even know where I'm supposed to start timing this. Okay, I guess I'll just do it like as soon as I see the sky. Okay, let's go. Huh? But she already got she got stabbed at like, I stopped it at 6.30. Am I supposed to wait until she's like, I don't know, I guess it's 7 seconds, or close enough in some world, depending on what way you count. What we do know for sure is that Stamp Prime Aerith is absolutely dead, okay? Cloud perceives her as speaking to him, reaching up to his crying face, telling him it's gonna be okay, but she got very stabbed by Sephiroth. Like, there's a pool of blood on the ground here, which everybody who's not Cloud can see, and she's deceased. Now, this is where we get into the marathon of boss fights, during which Stamp J, Zach, okay, the one that was waiting at the church, he's wandering around the world between worlds, and he manages to find Cloud, and when he touches him, the pair are united, and they fight Sephiroth together. But at the end of the fight, Sephiroth, like, he slashes the like floating rock in space they're on into 2, so their worlds get separated again. And Sephiroth says that their realities came together, but like, they're done. Okay, so they both fight Sephiroth Reborn in separate locations. Zack is now back in the church where he came from, except it doesn't have a roof anymore and the sky is on fire, and Cloud is still on that floating rock in space where they were together. Except when Zack fights Sephiroth, we also cut to Cloud doing the same attacks and saying the same phrase. So, spoilers for the original Final Fantasy VII. If you want out, now's the time. I'm giving you a moment. Okay, moment's passed. Cloud has fully lost it again and gone 100% Zack. To explain, when Zack died in Crisis Core and in original Final Fantasy VII, which we see in a flashback, it's just Cloud, he's in a bad place. Like, he's Mako poisoned, his brain is not functioning at 100%, and he basically takes on Zack's memories of the Nibelheim incident, plus his personality. Now, this is why Aerith talks about searching for Cloud, the real Cloud, if she's your date in Chapter 12, and during the Dream in the Forest, which we already discussed. Basically, the Zack thing is like Cloud's way of keeping his fragile little psyche safe and not confronting the fact that he murdered a bunch of Shinra infantry in cold blood and willingly gave the black materia to Sephiroth back at the Temple of the Ancients. Now, after Cloud and an Aerith, I don't know which one, take down Sephiroth from that floating rock in space, Cloud is returned to the Stamp Prime reality, and the main ending proceeds with everyone being sad about Aerith, except Cloud, who views her as having reawakened, and then she's sitting next to him on the bank while everyone else is mourning her. So Zack wakes up in a not destroyed version of the church. I mean, wakes up is relative. Even he's like, this couldn't possibly have been a dream. It was way too real. And he also speculates that maybe even though their realities have split, they could potentially come back together. And that's important. Okay, well, we're just gonna jump ahead to the final scene of the ending. And there's two main things to focus on here, okay? One of them is the sky. Okay, so this is the sky from the Zack world, from the Aerith dream. It's bad, okay? Cloud tells everybody don't look up at the sky, just like Aerith told him to not look up at the sky in the time where he was in the dream with her. But when other people look up at the sky, it looks like a normal ass sky, okay? Only Cloud can perceive the sky as being like this. So that could mean that he's like, can exist in multiple realities, like he's seeing multiple timelines happening at once. I just don't know. Okay, but maybe there is some sense to this, which is Cloud has partially assumed Zack's identity. So just stay with me on this one. What if Cloud is now partially seeing through Zack's eyes? So like Zack is looking up at this scary ass sky and Cloud's like, dang, that's a scary sky. I don't know. Anyway, here's where all of our multiple realities stand at this point. Stamp Prime universe, everything looks normal to everybody else. They're all gonna venture on, Aerith is dead, everybody is sad. Okay, in the Zack universe, the Stamp Z, unclear if Zack lived through that encounter with the whole Shinra infantry when he was looking for Hojo to make Cloud better. That's a big old question mark. Same thing with the B universe, okay? The Biggs universe. He jumped off the side of the reactor where he could theoretically have very nicely landed on flowers, as we've seen both him and Cloud do in the church in Sector 5. But again, that's gonna be a big old question mark. The main timeline that we definitely know what happened is in the Johnny timeline, okay? This Zack is the one that was involved in the fight with Sephiroth and with Cloud and told Cloud to save Aerith, okay, which he maybe did. The Zack in the Johnny timeline, he's still out there kicking. He's the one that we see in that last scene. And this is where, again, we don't know what has happened to the Aerith in his world or the Cloud in his world, who's still like sitting in a wheelchair suffering from Mako poisoning, which my theory on that is that's not actually gonna get resolved until the third game. And like, it's not Hojo who's gonna make Cloud better, it's Tifa. You know, if you've played all of Final Fantasy VII. So that's basically the gist of where everybody stands. And then back in our main timeline, yeah, Cloud also has the black materia. He was like looking at the clear materia and he put it in his pocket.
The hell?
And I don't know if it's like the clear materia morphed into the black materia, or he just realized he still had it in his pocket and he also has clear materia in his pocket. But the point is, he has the black materia, he sticks it in his sword so nobody else knows he has it because it like camouflages itself in his sword, and he's like, yo, we gotta go north. So they load up in the tiny Bronco to head north, where Cloud is literally being summoned by Sephiroth along with all the other people infused with Sephiroth cells, aka the black robes, for the reunion. Whew, okay, that's it. That's it. That is the ending of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, explained with perfect clarity. Oh, wait. There is one more scene. All right, I'm gonna level with y'all. I have absolutely no idea what the is going on with Rufus in this scene. And I've read multiple tie-in novels and watched the 2 OVAs that came packaged with my absolutely 100% legitimate copy of Advent Children Complete. But I'm gonna take a stab at it. So we know, looking back at the scene in Junon where Glen Lodbrok, one of the OG soldiers, shows up to confront Rufus, that Rufus shot him in the back, killing him at some point in the past.
I thought you were dead.
We also know from his story in Ever Crisis that Glen teamed up with Sephiroth when he first showed up as the new genetically modified soldier, and they basically participated in a genocide together. Now, it stands to reason that Glen could have been saved following his death by everyone's favorite mad scientist, Professor Hojo, who simply loves injecting people with Sephiroth cells. But also, this Sephiroth clone who's with Rufus isn't Glen. Like, we see a face that's not Glen, especially after he dies. But like the other Sephiroth clones, as we've seen multiple times throughout the game, they can assume the form of Sephiroth. But how/why is this black robe assuming the form of Glen?
Who, me?
Black robes don't do that. They're Sephiroth or themselves, not Sephiroth and whoever the heck else they want to be, and also themselves. At least after a lot of rewatching captured scenes, I finally figured out the shot in the back thing, because that's like how Glen died before. Is Rufus already shot him? That's it. Ta-da, we did it. We did it. That's the ending of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth explained. It's perfect. No notes. It's actually all 100% factually correct. It all makes perfect sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. What the f*** is happening? Oh dear. This absolutely ruined my life when I played the original game. And like, I played it a year late. I knew this was gonna happen. I still cried, okay?